Foundation of British Empire in India was laid by Battle of Plassey fought in 1757. The main purpose of British rule in India was to use Indian economy as feeder economy for the development of British economy. They exploited India's natural as well as human resources for the glory of their own country. Finally, after 200 years of British rule, India gains independence from them on 15 August 1947. How about Madhav tell us about the features of Indian economy before the advent of British rule?
Before the advent of British rule, Indian economy was characterized with the following features. First, prosperous economy. India was an independent, self-reliant and prosperous economy. Second, agrarian economy. Agriculture was the main source of livelihood for most people and it engaged about two-thirds of the total population. Third, India was also known for its handicraft industries in the fields of cotton and silk textile, metal and precious stone works, etc. Handicraft products enjoyed a worldwide market due to its reputation, all the quality of material used, and the high standards of craftsmanship. The economic condition of the nation can be judged with the data of national income and per capita income. However, no sincere attempt was made by the British government to estimate India's national and per capita income. Some individual attempts were made by experts like Dadabhai Nauroji, William Digby, Finlay Shiras, V.K.R.V. Rao, and R.C. Desai, but all these estimates produce conflicting, inconsistent results. However, estimates of Dr. Rao on national and per capita incomes were considered very significant. Most of the studies reveal that country's growth of aggregate real output during the first half of the 20th century was less than 2% and only 0.5% growth in per capita output per year. Now let's hear from Chirag about agricultural sector and the main reasons for stagnation in agriculture sector.
Agriculture sector. During the pre-British period, the condition of Indian agriculture was not at all satisfactory. Nearly 85% of country's population lived mostly in villages and derived livelihood directly or indirectly from agriculture. Even with this large proportion of population engaged in agriculture, the country was not self-sufficient in food and raw material for industry. Main reasons for stagnation in agriculture sector. First, land settlement system. The most important reason for stagnation in agriculture sector was the introduction of zamindari system by the colonial government. Under this system, profits accruing out of agriculture sector went to the zamindars in the form of lagan. The main interest of the zamindars was only to collect lagan regardless of their economic condition of the cultivator. The dates for depositing specified sums of lagan to British government were also fixed, which the zamindars were to lose their rights. The zamindars and the colonial government did not done nothing to improve the condition of agriculture. Commercialization of agriculture. Commercialization of agriculture means production of crops for sale in the market rather for self consumption. During the British rules, farmers were given high price for producing cash crops like cotton or jute. However, this didn't improve the economic condition of farmers because instead of producing food crops, they were producing cash crops which were to be ultimately used by the British industries. Third factor, low level of productivity. Low level of technology, lack of irrigation facilities, and negligible use of fertilizers resulted in low level of productivity. The cultivator had neither the means nor an incentive to invest in agriculture. The zamindar had no roots in the villages, while the British rule spent little on agriculture, technical, or mass education. All this made it difficult to introduce modern technology, which caused a perpetual low level of productivity. Fourth factor, scarcity of investment. India's agriculture was facing scarcity of investment in terracing, flood control, and drainage. Although some farmers changed their cropping pattern from food crops to commercial crops, a large section of tenants, small farmers, and sharecroppers neither had resources and technology and had incentive to invest in agriculture. Now I ask Kabir to tell me about the industrial sector.
Although agriculture had dominated the Indian economy during the pre British period, but some Indian industries producing certain special products enjoyed the worldwide reputation. India was particularly well known for its handicraft industry. British government systematically destroyed Indian handicraft industry and no modern industry base was allowed to come up. The primary motive of British rule behind deindustrialization was twofold: to get raw material from India at cheap rates to be used by upcoming modern industries in Britain, and to sell finished products to British industry in Indian market at higher prices. The twofold policy of British rule was enforced to ensure the maximum advantage of their home country. Decline of handicraft industry adversely affected the Indian economy. The decline of Indian handicraft resulted in unemployment on mass scale. The displaced artisans were forced to take up agriculture for their livelihood. This increased the burden of population on villages and overcrowding in agriculture. The Indian made goods could not withstand the foreign competition of machine made cheap goods. It resulted in the new demand in Indian consumer market which was not fulfilled through locally made goods. Rather, this demand was profitably met by increasing imports of manufactured goods from Britain. So, Mahir, can you please explain what is foreign trade?
India has been an important trading nation since ancient times. However, the restrictive policies adopted by the colonial government adversely affected the structure, composition, and volume of India's foreign trade. India became an exporter of primary products such as raw silk, cotton, wool, sugar, indigo, jute, etc., and an importer of finished consumer goods like cotton, silk, and woolen clothes, and capital goods like light machinery produced in the British industries. British government maintained the monopoly control over India's exports and imports. More than half of India's foreign trade was restricted to Britain, while the rest was allowed to, with few other countries like China, Ceylon, Sri Lanka, and Persia, Iran. The opening of Suez Canal in 1869 served as a direct route for the ships operating between India and Britain. Under the British rule, India became an exporter of primary products and an importer of finished goods. There were huge export surplus due to the excess exports. However, export surplus was used to make payments for expenses incurred by an office set up by the colonial government in Britain, to meet expenses on war forwarded by the British government, and to import invisible items. Further, Aditya Tanwar will explain us about the demographic conditions. Demographic conditions during the British rule exhibited all features of a stagnant and backward Indian economy. First official census was conducted in the year 1881. Through suffering from certain limitations, the census revealed unevenness in India's population growth. From 1881 onward, census operations were carried out after every 10 years. Before 1921, India was in the first stage of demographic transition with very high birth and high death rates. The death fluctuated from year to year, and as census, the size of population remained almost stationary. With the beginning of decline in their death rate, the population of the country entered the second stage of transition. The second stage of transition began from 1921. From the year 1921 onwards, India's population never declined and recorded a constant rise. Due to this reason, 1921 is called the Great Year of Divide.
What was the demographic condition during the colonial rule?
High birth rate and death rate both were very high at nearly 48 and 40 per hundred respectively. The overall literacy level was less than 16%. Out of this, the female literacy level was at a negligible low at about 7%. Public health facilities were neither unavailable to large mass of population or, when available, very highly inadequate. As a result, water and airborne diseases were widespread and took huge toll on life. The mortality rate was quite alarming, about 218 per 1,000 in contact to the infant mortality rate of 33 per 1,000 in 2017 and 32 per 1,000 in 2018. Life expectancy was very low, 32 years in contract to present 69 years. There was no relief data about the exact of poverty, but there is no doubt that existence poverty prevailed in India during the colonial period. So it can be concluded that British rule was the main reason to worsen the profile of India's population.
Occupational structure. During the colonial period, occupational structure of India showed little sign of change. The state of occupation structure during the British rule can be summarized as predominance of primary occupation. The agriculture sector accounted for the largest share of workforce. with 70 to 75%. The manufacturing and service sectors accounted for 10% and 15 to 20% respectively. Another striking aspect was the growing regional variation. The state of Tamil Nadu, Andhra Pradesh, Kerala, Karnataka, Maharashtra, and West Bengal witnessed a decline in dependence of workforce on the agricultural sector with a commensurate increase in the manufacturing service sector. However, during the same time, there had been an increase in the share of workforce in agriculture in states such as Odisha, Rajasthan, and Punjab.
Infrastructure refers to all such activities, services, and facilities which are needed to provide different kinds of services in an economy. The infrastructure facilities during British rule were very poor. Some efforts were made to develop basic infrastructure like roads, railways, ports, water transport, post, and telegraph, but the main motive behind such infrastructure development was to reserve various colonial interests. The state of infrastructure as inherited from the British rule were: first, roads. The colonial administration could not accomplish much on construction of roads due to scarcity of funds. The roads that were built primarily served the interest of mobilizing the army and shifting raw materials. There always remained an acute shortage of all weather roads to reach out to rural areas during the rainy season. As a result, people living in these areas suffered badly during natural calamities and families. Second, railways. The most important contribution of the British rule was to introduce railways in India in 1850. The railways affected the structure of the Indian economy in two important ways. Railways enabled people to undertake long distance travel. It broke geographical and cultural barriers and promoted national integration. It enhanced commercialization of Indian agriculture, which adversely affected the comparative self sufficiency of the village economies in India. Railways also promoted the modern trade, but it benefited the bruisers more than the Indians. The construction of railways led to huge economic losses to the Indian economy. Third, air and water transport. British government took measures for developing the water and air transport. However, their development was very far from satisfactory. Inland waterways proved to be uneconomically, as in the case of Coast Canal on the Orissa coast. This canal was built at a huge cost, but it failed to compete with the railways, and finally canal had to be abandoned. Fourth, communication. Posts and telegraphs were the most popular means of communication. The introduction of the expensive system of electric telegraph in India serves the purpose of maintaining law and order. Postal services, despite serving a useful public purpose, remained all through inadequate. Now let's hear from Lakshay about the conclusion.
Conclusions. The various forms of exploitation by the Britishers on the Indian economy can be broadly analyzed with the following points. First, India remained an agricultural country throughout the British period and its agricultural sector remained totally backward. There was commercialization of agriculture to serve the interest of Great Britain. Second, Britain rulers never tried to modernize the prevailing industrial structure of India. There was large scale destruction of world famous handicraft and cottage industries in the country. Third, by following the policy of discriminating protecting, Britishers gained complete control over the entire Indian markets. Fourth, Britishers rulers gradually transformed the Indian economy into a primary proceeding country, exporting only agricultural products and raw material necessary for industries in Britain and importing finished goods from Britain. Fifth, to promote foreign trade and to exploit natural resources of India to their advantage, British rural build up economy infrastructure, which includes roads and railways networks, ports, shipping, irrigation, and electricity, etc. Sixth, British rulers thoroughly exploited the Indian economy through economic drain. The aforesaid nature of exploitative policies of British rulers resulted in large scale poverty, stagnation, and backward of Indian economy along with a huge drain of Indian economic resources of by the Great Britain. Now I like Bhumika to share points about the state of Indian economy on the eve of independence.
During the British rule, the Britishers transformed the Indian economy into colonial, backward, semi feudal, stagnant, depleted, and amputated economy. In India, colonial exploitation is a long history spread over nearly 200 years. British rule resulted in huge drain of wealth from India in order to facilitate growing British industry with supply of raw materials from India. They also encouraged commercialization of Indian agriculture to transform Indian economy into British colony. The impact of British colonial policy was deep on India even at the time of independence. By the close of British period, there were two aspects of the Indian economy. First, introduction of feudal system. The land settlement system gave birth to feudal relations. The landlord used to charge very high rate of lagan and were very cruel to the cultivators. Second, introduction of capitalist system. The establishment of modern industries led to creation of two classes, capitalists and laborers. So India inherited the features of both feudal and capitalist system in the Indian economy. A stagnant economy is one which is growing at very low rate. On the eve of independence, Indian economy was a stagnant economy as country's growth of aggregate real output during first half of 20th century was less than 2% and growth in per capita output was only 0.5%. At the end of British rule, Indian economy was backward and underdeveloped. The main reason for the backwardness of Indian economy were low level of productivity, low per capita income, traditional methods of agriculture, high birth rate and death rate, mass illiteracy. At the time of independence, Indian economy was a depleted economy. Depleted economy refers to an economy where no arrangements have been made to replace the physical assets depreciated due to excessive use. During the Second World War, Indian industries had to work beyond their capacities to meet the increased demand of plant, machinery, equipment, etc. for the war. However, British rulers did not make any arrangements to replace the depreciated physical assets. As a result, British rulers had left a seriously depleted economy. Britishers' policy of divide and rule always promoted discrimination between various groups on the basis of religion, caste, language and culture. As a result, on the eve of independence, country was geographically divided into two parts, India and Pakistan. Partition of country virtually disrupted the economy due to problem of rehabilitation of large number of refugees from Pakistan and shortage of raw material for jute and cotton mills as most of the cotton and jute growing areas